Welcome to the Music Made Me podcast, episode 1. We are finally here. We are launching. I'm so excited. This has been so long in the making, and I'm so excited to finally be here with our first full episode. And man, what a good one we have for you. It's Adam Gontier. You probably know him best as the former lead singer of 3 Days Grace, or maybe as the current lead singer of Saint Asonia. No matter how you know him, you're going to love this conversation. Man, he's had a great career. He's had a lot of ups and downs, but no matter what has happened, he's persevered, he's pushed through, and he's done everything he can to make music his career. And music has really made him. It's been part of his life ever since he was young. So we hope you enjoy episode 1, Adam Gontier. So how are things?
Good, man. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, consider all things considered.
And what has lockdown looked like for you artistically? Has it offered up a lot of writing opportunities, or have you been just taking the time to kind of have some downtime, spend it with your family, and not worry about the music right now?
No, we've been writing a lot. I've been writing a lot. Yeah, because we were supposed to be on tour. I don't know, I was getting in the mindset of like getting to work and that sort of thing. So, and being stuck at home, I have a little studio up here that I'm fortunately able to just get away and work. So yeah, really, really was important to me to stay somewhat busy. And, we put out a record late 2019 and we were supposed to spend 2020 touring. And that just didn't happen. We played one show, in the entire year. So, yeah, so not knowing what the plan is for going back out on the road, whether we're going to support the last record that we put out in 2019, or if we're going to just sort of skip that entirely and move on to a new record or something. So, yeah, just wanted to stay busy, and it's a good time to be writing, and a lot of stuff to write about too.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you about, because like a lot of your music is about finding peace through the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like this past year and a half, that could really bring up those emotions within someone. So has that happened for you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few songs that I've written over the last year or so, or however many months, that are definitely, written out of a place of like frustration and some anger. And but yeah, at the same time, I try not to be too blunt and to the point. So it's not, so yeah, there's a lot of emotions have been felt definitely over the last while. So getting that out onto a record and into music is great.
And with the past albums, you've done a lot of collaborative writing with others from outside the band. So have you been doing that via, online digital
Not
stuff,
really.
or is it mostly
Not
just you?
Yeah, not so much this time around. Just within the band, we've been sending ideas back and forth. And Mike Mushock lives in Connecticut, so
Oh, okay.
and the three of us, Kale, Cody, and myself, live here in Peterborough. So
Oh,
we're
nice.
able to somewhat get together here and there every once in a while. But Mike is in the States and in Connecticut, so we're just sending ideas back and forth. And we've pretty much completed um, about 6 songs, maybe 7. And I think the plan is to get those on to an EP here shortly and get them out there. Yeah.
And so what does recording look like if things are still sort of in lockdown, say until later endish of 2021? Are you guys set up to be able just to record your own parts wherever you are, or will you try and head into a studio in the Peterborough area to do that?
You know what? I don't have any idea what the plan is. I really don't know. I think if we can't go anywhere and we have to, if we were to have to lock or quarantine ourselves for a couple weeks before working in a studio in the States, which is what we would normally do, probably, chances are good we're not going to do that. So yeah, I think we'll end up doing our parts at home and sending them to our producer to do his magic at his end and see what happens. it's always weird though, recording drums. You kind of have to do that in a studio or a big room somewhere. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, we might have to get into a studio in Peterborough. I really have no idea how it's going to look. We've demoed the songs already, and um, yeah, so I don't think we can work with the demos really. I think we'll do it properly.
And speaking of Peterborough, let's go all the way back. When you were younger, your parents divorced when you were quite young,
about
I think.
about 10, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So was music a big part of your life back then and helping you sort of process emotions?
Yeah, yeah, it sure was for sure. And our family was pretty musical too. My mom's side of the family is very musical. There's 7 siblings on that side, and they all play music and that sort of thing. So yeah, we grew up in a very musical family, so it was pretty natural. Um, yeah, yeah, and definitely used music as an outlet when I was at that age. But I was listening to stuff like classic rock stuff like Def Leppard and AC/DC and power ballads and love ballads and stuff. My mom was a sucker for those, so I grew up listening to that stuff.
And when did you start writing? When did you start putting your thoughts down on paper?
Probably when I was about 14, I think. Uh, I got really into the Seattle music scene. That was a huge inspiration to me. I got into Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all those bands. And the Tragically Hip were a massive influence on me as well back then. So my 2 favorite bands, and I think to this day, are still the Hip and Pearl Jam. It's just the way it is. So yeah, I think I started writing at around 14 years old, and then just ended up putting a band together in high school, and that warped into 3 Days Grace, and then that was it. History.
When you were 14, was your writing, has it always come from that same place?
Yeah, it really has. My inspiration being the Seattle, seeing that sort of powerful grunge, very emotional stuff. It was just supernatural, and I always write in that sort of state of mind, or I get myself into that state of mind to write songs. Yeah.
I've heard you say right now it's the happiest you've ever been. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're writing, is it sometimes difficult if you're having a good day to get yourself into that state of mind?
Yeah, for sure. It really is. Yeah. It's a weird line to try to write, stuff that is powerful and emotional when when I'm having a fantastic day and that sort of thing. But there's definitely always something to write about. There's no matter what's happening, there's always those angry moments or whatever it is, that make their way into my brain. Yeah.
You're talking about Pearl Jam being one of your big influences. For some reason, I never knew about Groundswell.
Okay.
I just found searching last night was the first time I came across it, and I
Right.
listened to the CD, found it on YouTube, and it has that very Pearl Jam feel to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were I guess we were 17, I think, 16, something like that. Yeah. And oh yeah, when I listen back to some of that stuff, I rarely do, but the odd time I hear something, I'm just like, whoa, like it bugs me. But it's like Eddie Vedder and Tracy Chapman had a love child or something.
Yeah.
In my voice on that album. So yeah, but yeah, everybody starts somewhere.
Between that and the start of 3 Days Grace, what kind of changed within you to change the musical stylings?
Um, well, I mean, at that time we moved after we had Groundswell for a while. We moved from Peterborough to Toronto, and it was our lives just changed. We ended up living by ourselves in Toronto, and life was just different. And we lost a guitar player. He quit to move on and do other stuff, and so yeah, the band changed, and we want to change our name and our style. We got super influenced by Finger Eleven back in the day. Like we moved to Toronto and ended up watching them play, and we were all just blown away by Finger Eleven and how awesome they were live and their songs. So we got really influenced by that, and everything just sort of changed. We changed from kind of sounding like classic Rocky to being more riff oriented and like kind of dark and that sort of thing. And it was just kind of a natural natural evolution.
Going into the first album, what was your mindset, being your, not your first band, but sort of your first band out of high school?
Mm-hmm.
Were you going in with a professional attitude, I guess, being that young? Did you have that sort of professional mindset on, or were you still just doing it sort of for fun to get music out there?
We were doing it for fun for sure. I think when we made our first record, when we went into it, we weren't really thinking about the business side so much. And that's where, when we did get our record deal and we got it through EMI Publishing at the time, and Gavin Brown, the producer, we had, they hired him basically to work with us and work on our demos and all that stuff. And he brought in a pretty professional vibe to the whole thing, but, and we were young, so we were just kind of going with it and having fun and whatever else. But yeah, Gavin Brown kind of reined it in, and then took, all the best pieces of what we had, and tried to put it all together.
And then when it hit, like, it was pretty quick. Like, how long would you say there was from sort of when you're in the studio, sort of, fooling around, to when you get the album out? And when was your first sort of indication that, holy cow, this is something, we got something here?
I really think it was probably when on our first tour, when we went out, I remember our first American tour was with Trapped and Smile Empty Soul. And that we had released, I guess I Hate Everything About You was was the first single that really, that when we were on tour, we were playing that song, and we were opening for the two bands, Smile Empty Soul and Trapped. And I think about halfway through that tour, the crowds started to get bigger and people started to sing that song, I Hate Everything. It became pretty big. And I think we ended up switching spots on the lineup with Smile Empty Soul. I think we ended up going second, being the main support or whatever. So yeah, I think it was at that moment, I guess, when things kind of shifted, when we were on tour and everybody started singing, all the lyrics and all that thing. It was pretty crazy for sure.
And how old were you at that point? If you don't mind me asking.
I must have been about 23 or something, 23 or 24, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So what was that like? I know for me as a 23, 24-year-old, I imagine there's out on tour when you're gaining notoriety like that, all of a sudden the world opens up and you can get what you want. So as being a young guy like that, what was that like for you?
I mean, it was fun, at the time. It was pretty crazy. Yeah. All the typical stereotypes that go with, being a rock star on the road were at the time pretty true. But I remember learning early on that if we didn't take it too serious and we were just out there like we toured with so many bands back then, and we saw so many bands like that were around for a little while that just partied, and they didn't take it serious and they just fell off the face of the earth. They were on tour, they had a song on the radio and they were doing great, and then they just disappeared. And those were bands that liked to party, and we could tell. And so I think we learned that as well early on, that we had to, if we wanted to stick around and if we wanted to actually sustain ourselves, we had to take it pretty serious. And even before we started touring, I had my personal problems with drugs and alcohol before we started touring. So, getting on the road was like an open invitation sort of to that lifestyle, and nobody was telling me it was wrong, anything like that. It was, it's kind of expected in a way, so yeah, but like I said, thankfully I learned pretty early on that you have to, it's work, it's not just a party.
When was the first stint in rehab? Was it after the first album or after going into 1X?
After the first album and before we did 1X, so 2005, I think, was the year. And I got out and went immediately into working on 1X. I mean, that album 1X is pretty personal, has a, there's a lot of lyrics on that album are about that time period when I was in treatment and stuff. A lot of the lyrics I wrote while I was in rehab. But yeah, and then back out on the road again, and I went out with a sober coach for a while, and that helped. And was in and out of treatment a couple times during that whole period. It definitely wasn't easy, but yeah, I was aware, and that was a good thing that I was aware of the problems that I had. So when it felt like it was getting out of control, I kind of tried to look after it if I could.
What is it like when you're in that state going up on stage?
Well, I mean, for me, I was my main drug choice were painkillers and pills. So for me, to be able to feel normal, I had to take pills to make myself feel normal. So it got into a routine of just taking pills to make sure I wasn't getting sick, like physically ill. So I didn't necessarily feel like high a lot. I felt just normal, even keeled type of thing. And I really didn't have a big issue with alcohol. So that sort of came into play a few years later. But yeah, it was more or less trying to stay normal and trying to just maintain some level of normalcy. And I couldn't do that without taking pills.
What was sort of the wall you hit near the end of the 3 days grace period? How far in advance of when you left did you know that you were wanting to leave?
I can't remember the exact dates, but I know it was in December of I guess 2012 ish. I think that we played a couple shows at Peterborough here, and I around that time I'd sort of made up my mind. After those shows was when I sort of made up my mind that that's what I was going to do. At least I thought that was the plan, and that was the plan. But I was thinking about it at that time. So I mean, there's a lot of different things, and that built up over the years. We were a band for 20 years, and we were all friends long before we started the band. And so, there's looking back at it now, I think there's definitely ways that it could have been handled differently from my perspective as well as theirs. But at this point, I don't think there's any real hard feelings anymore, and everybody's just sort of moved on. And because we were different people back then, for sure, and I'm a different person now. So, yeah. So there was, it was the course of a few years of different things that just started to take its toll on me, and I was unhealthy. I just wasn't feeling good. I didn't feel like it was the best situation for me to be in anymore, to stay, to try to stay healthy. So yeah.
When you left, did you have the next step already planned out?
I didn't have any plan really, none. I knew that I just wanted to take time off and just play some acoustic guitar and relax for a while. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I did. And eventually Mike Mushak, I can't remember exactly when it was, but he reached out to me, just asked me how I was doing, that sort of thing. And yeah, and then we connected that way. He was working on a solo record that he wanted different singers to be a part of, and asked me if I'd want to be a part of it. And I said, sure. And we got together, did some writing, and we ended up writing a lot more songs than we thought we would. And yeah, we just it naturally evolved from there. Yeah. But I had no plans early on after leaving 3 days to do anything else. Yeah.
And what is the solo stuff like after being with a band for so long and then just going out on your own? Is that a different vibe, a different feeling, or is it sort of music is music?
Yeah, no, acoustic stuff was pretty natural. I grew up playing acoustic guitar and all that stuff. So it was definitely different going back out and being on stage by myself and sort of having, it was a different vibe, but a lot of fun. I still do it now. Head over to Russia and different spots and solo tours and stuff.
Going into that first Saint Asonia album, you guys were kind of labeled as the super group, right? Because you're coming in from all these different bands. Did you guys feel like that you were assembling this super group?
No, not at all. Not at all. That definitely wasn't our intention. Mike and I I guess just obviously from our previous bands, and it became something like people, just wanted to label it that, or for whatever reason. But yeah, no, we were just again a bunch of friends that you know uh, just started playing together. So everybody, Corey Lowry didn't have anything happening at the time, and he's a great bass player and everything, and a longtime friend. So we just all it was pretty natural for sure.
And going in, you probably didn't have any expectations for it. So were you surprised at sort of the success right away, or because you've been doing this so long, you have the contacts, you know the business side of things, were you guys really going into it, really pushing hard to
Right.
really hit the ground running?
Yeah, we really wanted to. I mean, that was the plan. If we were going to do it, we wanted to do it right and
Right.
try to make it something big if we could. Um, but yeah, I didn't have any expectations for sure. That's I try not to ever put too many expectations on myself, because it's pretty easy to get let down. And the amount of success that I did have with 3 Days Grace definitely, it plays a part in things that I continue to do throughout my career. It's like I want to, I want to stay at a certain level, or try to be at a certain level that maybe I once was at, or uh, so it's always a little bit weird. But yeah, no real expectations for San Antonio when we started. It was just, let's just do what we do, and hopefully people like it.
And what was the writing process like? Because I know with 3 Days Grace, there was a lot of people involved, was there, for the 3 Days Grace writing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 It was yeah, it depended on the song and what we were working on. But yeah, everybody had some input in the 3 day stuff, and it's kind of the same with Saint Asonia now. But when Saint Asonia first started, it was just Mike and myself sitting with acoustic guitars and uh, coming up with stuff, and then sending ideas back and forth. So the two of us basically wrote all the stuff on the first album, and then this past album, it's kind of the same thing, but with a few outside writers.
With that second album, you had a chance to write with some guys that you'd known from the past, and some pretty standout guys. So what was that process like compared to in the past?
This time around was with Flawed Design was cool, because we actually worked with some friends like Keith Wallen from Breaking Benjamin and Dustin Bates from Starset. We wanted to have a bit of a different vibe on the record, and a different elements involved. And Dustin from Starset is really good at that sort of thing. He's got definitely a different vibe than we're used to. So yeah, we worked with different people, and it was fun.
You were coming out of another stint in rehab going into that album, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, and that was definitely sort of unexpected, and why Flawed Design sort of took longer than we had hoped. Yeah, ended up in treatment in Nashville around the same time that my son was born, and yeah, definitely needed that to happen to be able to make the record that we did, for sure. Yeah.
And did you check yourself in because you knew that you were having a son?
Well, no, I mean, not really. I ended up people around me, management and some friends and that sort of thing, suggested that I go get some help. And I was in a pretty weird state of mind. I'd been using on and off for quite a few months, and I just planned on dealing with it myself and taking care of it. And by the time my son was born, and that didn't happen, so I played a couple solo acoustic shows in Northern Ontario here, and I don't remember the shows at all. Uh, but yeah, there was a small intervention there, and then they flew me down to Nashville to get treatment, and then I flew up to Minnesota and stayed in a center there as well for a while. Yeah, yeah. So it was a long process, and it definitely needed to happen, because I couldn't do it on my own, and I was trying to for quite a few months, and it just didn't happen. So
Right. I guess that's a huge message for anyone out there who's struggling right now, right? Is you think you can do it on your own, but that's
yeah,
a pretty tall order, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Is one of those things I told myself every day that I would eventually slow down and stop, by a certain time or whatever. And it just, yeah, just couldn't do it. I
Right.
wanted to, I definitely wanted to, but just couldn't. Yeah.
And so this second album, was that written before going into rehab or after then, most of it?
Um, no, I'd say about half of it was written before going in. Mike and I had, yeah, probably 5 or 6 songs that we had worked on and we had demoed and got ready to, start recording. And then I went into rehab. And then when I got out of rehab, we sort of picked the process back up. And, we flew to LA to work with Keith, some writing there. And yeah, we picked up about, yeah, I'd say when I was out of rehab, we ended up writing about half the record after that.
Okay. So can you see a difference in the writing on the record, or because you're working with more of a team, was there not really a change in how you're writing before and after?
No, there's definitely a change for sure. I mean, for me, maybe it's something that I notice more so than others, maybe. But I can definitely feel when I'm more aware and just more present in the entire process,
Right.
and really focused on lyrics and really focused on parts rather than just sort of not being 100% into it, really, just sort of just not really caring all that much. Yeah. Yeah, so I can tell a difference for sure. Yeah, a lot of times if I'm under the influence or when I was under the influence and working with a producer, I would just sort of take the idea that the producer has thrown at me and just agree and just say, okay, yeah, that sounds great, moving on, and yeah, when we were making Flawed Design, it was, yeah, there's a huge difference because really, really care about what I'm doing. And, I don't want to just agree to do something that sounds good to one person and this sort of thing. So yeah, there's a lot going into it, but absolutely. I can notice a difference when I'm working on an album and I'm sober.
Going into this third one, you've said, this is the happiest you've been. You have your son, you're sober. So the writing on this third album, what's it looking like?
Well, I mean, Kale and Cody and Mike and myself have been collaborating, sending ideas back and forth. So it's, I mean, we're all really excited about the music. Like I was saying, we have 6 songs finished that are probably going to go on an EP and maybe 7. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's rock. It's pretty straightforward rock. There's a lot of riffs, and it's pretty heavy. Flawed Design was a little bit different for us because of the co-writing that we did with other people. There were some different elements there, and didn't end up being as heavy as maybe we would have liked. Certain parts of it or aspects of it. So this time around, I just want to get back to just some super heavy, straightforward stuff. That's just, I don't want to add too much to it. I just want to just want to make it pretty raw and real. So that's the plan, and that's where these songs are at the moment. So yeah.
Growing up in the Toronto area, was Much Music like a thing for you? Like, did you ever go down to Much Music as a band?
All the time.
You kind of hit that sweet spot of Much Music as a band, right?
Yeah, we got in right. We ended up at Much Music doing interviews and stuff, when after our first album came out, and doing I don't know if it was an intimate and interactive or a Much on Demand or something. I forget what it was, right? But yeah, when I was growing up and when we lived in Toronto early on, yeah, that was a big thing for us. We'd always, go down and see what bands were there. And yeah, it was a huge thing. I grew up with Much Music. Yeah, absolutely.
And when
Yeah.
you look back through your career now, there's been a lot of ups and downs. How do you kind of look at it now from a perspective from the 1,000 foot up looking down?
Mm-hmm. Um, you know, from a career perspective, I think everything has sort of gone the way it it's meant to. Everything sort of. I do feel like everything happens for a reason. I think I've been through a lot, like you said, a lot of ups and downs, and in and out of treatment centers and that sort of thing. And I feel like everything is sort of um, has sort of shaped me to be who I am today. And that's what I'm supposed to be, and that's a father, and a present father and husband, and and son, and all that stuff. So yeah, it's taken years and years and years of like a lot of learning and a lot of teaching moments, and going through hell and back, but it's all pretty much been worth it for sure.
And now having so much time with your son during quarantine, is it going to be more difficult than usual to head back out on the road when that does happen?
I think, I mean, it's going to be difficult no matter what. So, yeah, the one thing, I mean, I haven't actually toured since he's been born. So I've been out at, for weeks at a time recording and that sort of thing, but I haven't really been out for, 6 months to however long. So yeah, it'll definitely be difficult, but he seems like he knows. We talk about a lot what that dad has to head out and work and play music and stuff, and he gets it. So I'm sure it'll be tough, but we'll see.
Is there any thought to maybe take him out on tour?
Yeah, absolutely. If we're able to bring, I mean, if I can bring the family out for a week at a time here and there on for a few dates that might be in the around this area or whatever, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'd be great to have him out and see actually what I do. I think at first he's probably going to be scared. He's going to see his pretty quiet, mellow dad on stage freaking out and screaming. So I'm not sure, not too sure how that's going to go over initially, but hopefully he digs it when he's a little bit older.
Yeah, and what part does music play in his life right now? Like, is he pretty a musical kid?
He is. Yeah, he is. He's in school 3 days a week in preschool here, and yeah, he sings a lot. And his teachers talk about how he's always singing perfectly on key and correcting some kids if they're singing a weird note or something.
Oh,
so,
really?
yeah, it's starting early for sure. Yeah, it's pretty noticeable. I mean, my mom, his grandma, notices it too, and she started with me, and just a lot of similarities and stuff. So we'll see. I mean, I'm never ever going to put any pressure on him, but I have a feeling he's going to be musical, whether he wants to do anything with it. Who knows?
And so moving forward this year, what's your kind of outlook? Are you hoping to kind of tour the last album, or is your thought, you know what, it's been a crazy couple of years, let's just, leave it where it is and whatever traction it gets and then move on to the third album?
Yeah, I think we're just going to take a step forward with the EP. I mean, we released Flawed Design. We had a couple singles from that album, so The Hunted went over pretty well. People like that song, and Blind we released as well. So we have, I think it's going to be a mix of both, a mix of some of the Flawed Design stuff and then some new stuff as well. So I mean, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of songs to choose from for the set. So that's always a good thing for sure.
Are you looking forward to the end of this year and what might be to come? It's sort of up in the air, but is that also sort of exciting in that sort of that excitement that's going to be there when you actually get back on the road, and just the amount of passion probably that fans are going to have for actually seeing live shows?
Oh, it's going to be crazy. Yeah. I mean, I can't wait. The July festival in Wisconsin is a really big festival anyway. And so if that goes on as planned, I mean, that's going to be I think it's going to be a pretty insane festival. And that's also a big if, right? If it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a feeling Europe will probably happen this, later on this year around fall, I think. So yeah, I mean, I'm just super excited to play some shows, Yeah, it's been too long. It's weird because a lot of times we go like a year or a year and a half, 2 years without playing any shows when you're making a record or something. So it's not that out of the ordinary to have this much time off, but there's something about not being able to that, that
Makes
really,
it different.
yeah, it makes it a lot different, when I don't know, when you're just not allowed, you're like, come on, you know. But yeah, I mean, we were supposed to be touring at this time, so yeah, it's tough. But looking forward to the end of the year, and hopefully things are back to normal-ish, sooner than later. Yeah,
Exactly. That's what we're hoping. Well, I thank you so much for joining us.
yeah, of course, man.
I know your son's waiting for you. So my son is too.
Yeah, I saw him pop up a couple times. I've moved rooms, and I actually locked the door here, and he banged a couple times, and then he just said, "Forget it." So
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
so yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We so appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man.
Actually, I forgot to tell you, this interview is actually like 11 years in the making, I believe.
Is that right,
Because I used to work in TV here in Kelowna, and you guys toured through in 2010.
Right.
And I had the chance to sit down with, I forget, Neil and Brad, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I had the chance to interview them, and I remember being disappointed because you weren't there. So I'm glad that I actually got to do this and actually had the chance to sit down with you.
For sure, man. That's cool. Yeah, to be quite honest, I was probably in like not a great state of mind, or who knows what, right?
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, but yeah, I'm glad we got to do it now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed episode 1. Be sure to like, share, follow us. We're going to have a lot of great guests. We're going to do this every week. We're going to bring in some of your favorite musicians, some musicians maybe you haven't heard of that'll turn into your favorite musicians. And we're going to learn about the journey, how music made them. Be sure to like, share, follow us on whatever streaming platform you get your favorite podcasts on, and come back each and every week on Monday for a new episode. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.